For this week, who we have is Tim Dewey. Tim has been an active part of the service and support industry for over 15 years. Tim has been responsible for the education and certification business for the former STI Knowledge and was their business unit head for sourcing solutions for over 9 years. His leadership and insight positioned the company's sourcing solutions in the upper right-hand quadrant for Gartner's help desk outsourcing services 3 times this decade, which is an excellent achievement, especially for a smaller to mid-sized company. He is now president and COO of the Be Virtual team and a broader role of COO with the entire BeWise group of companies. They are the leader in the virtual workforce solutions for the service and support industry. Be Virtual provides customers the solutions they require to deliver a continuously high level of service and support remotely. So without anything further, that's the introduction, and Tim will give you more of a highlight of kind of objectives of the session today, and I'll turn it over to Tim. So welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it. Today's session is really geared towards a bit of internalization regarding what's happening out there today. We're all impacted by changes in our work environment, changes in the economy, changes in our approach to how we're doing IT today. So as I go through the slides today, there's just a lot of data there, a lot of trending information. And really the biggest objective I hope to get out of this is that you can take some of this information away and internalize it and say, how is this impacting me, and how can I change, or how can I help my organization change for the positive over the next period of time, whether that's 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months. So with that, I'll get started. First slide there that I want to show and talk to is really where we are today in technology. And it really struck me over the last couple of weeks with the changes happening in Egypt and you know, their desire to be more of a democratic state. In all of that, I'm sure some of you may have heard that they actually shut down internet access and access to information. And I really found this interesting, this graph that I had pulled off of one of the blogs related to some of the Google information regarding data transfer during that time period. And if you notice there towards the end of January, essentially it stopped. And for those that have been following this, the changes in Egypt, they basically shut down, for lack of better terms, the internet coming inside and outside of that country to reduce or eliminate information to the people of that country. And again, to stay away from the politics of all this, the reality is now that technology plays such a major role in government, in private enterprise, wherever you are throughout the world, and whatever the conditions of the world are, it plays such a critical role. And the speed at which information is being delivered to everyone throughout the globe is to the point now where you know, governments fear, governments have an opinion, and governments want to play an active role in how they control information flow back and forth because of this technology. And so again, I wanted to throw this out there because as we look beyond our day-to-day work, and we look beyond just what we're doing and how we're supporting customers or how we're operating our IT organization, you really have to look at the macro level of how technology impacts the world today and can have such a great impact on what's happening country to country and across the world, and even how they choose to communicate and collaborate. Just want to throw some hardware facts out there, because as we start to drill down against what I just said and start to talk about the flow of information back and forth, there's some interesting data, kind of data bits and pieces coming out of the marketplace today that are really going to shape the trends for the next 2 to 5 years. And I just threw a few of them out here. And again, the first one there is that 39 million iPads were sold in the last year alone. So since the inception of the iPad, which was you know, early 2010, 39 million units of these have been sold. And if you look at where all of the development and research, or research and development right now is with the competitors of Apple today, it's really in the tablets. It's really in creating a mobile device that gets people information at a much thinner, much more narrow, much smaller scale. And I'll give you a personal example of how different things are becoming fairly rapidly. I was on a plane from California back to Georgia a week and a half ago, and we were pretty much stocked in there. There were no available seats, and there was myself, there was a young gentleman in the middle, and then there was a peer of mine on the other side of him. And so as we're sitting there on the plane, this young gentleman in the middle of me breaks out his iPad, throws it right on the table that folds down, and starts typing away on Facebook within probably less than 2 minutes. And of course, Delta was giving away free access to Facebook. So he was communicating back and forth to his friends, listening to music, really multitasking from a social perspective. And I'm sitting next to the window, and I'm struggling to even open up my laptop and be able to type anything. And at the end of the day, I couldn't even do it. So if you see this scene of, it's almost a TV commercial where the differences in how we are using technology today and how fast it's happening is really impacting our ability to work and be effective. And again, on that whole flight, I really wasn't able to work because I couldn't drop down and open up my full screen 15.6-inch screen laptop just to do work, yet I had someone sitting next to me that was doing many different things and emailing his friends at the same time. So just a very interesting dynamic in how things are changing. And this other point here where it says 346 million PCs sold in 2010, there's still a large marketplace for that. But what you're seeing is you're seeing a growth in a sustained growth worldwide, but you're seeing the advent of iPods, tablets, and then you're seeing a specialization market with Apple where 9 out of 10 computers sold over $1,000 are Apples. I'm not sure if anybody knew that. That was a bit of a shocker to me, which is telling me that the commoditized marketplace of PCs themselves are below that 1,000 mark, and really where people are buying in mass to use in certain situations. But what's really happening is that 39 million of that 346, those top two, are really changing the landscape for which we buy and use devices. And so that has a downstream effect on IT in the organization, and we'll talk about that for the next few slides. The last point there is IT capital spending in 2010 remained the same or decreased for 2/3 of the companies polled in the CIO Insight article. And I think that's important because as we see flat spending over the next 2 or 3 years continued within IT organizations, there's got to be other changes. We're going to talk about what those changes are. So as you see, 1/3 of the companies are increasing, but 2/3 are not. And as we start to see where the investment is in IT, we're really going to see a paradigm shift in where that investment comes and how it plays into how IT organizations choose to service their customers.
And Tim, I'm not sure if there's anywhere else to expand on that, but just in terms of how or why hardware is being presented in the manner it is on that slide, is there something else that that people on the line should be looking for there?
I think the biggest shift here is mobile devices, and we're going to talk about mobility towards the end when we talk about trends. But the biggest area here is mobility and the fact that more and more you're seeing apps, you're seeing hardware being sold that is 100% geared towards mobility. And obviously B-Virtual is in a remote workforce business, but aside from that, when we look at mobility, we look at the barriers that affect the normal employee having to drive to work, having to go to work, having to plug in, right? And while we talk about it and you see the articles on it, it's really happening at such a rapid pace based on the technology that's being deployed, like iPads, that we really have to, from an IT perspective, we have to stand up and take notice right now, because I'll show you in a couple of slides the advent of which we're going to have to support these iPads, these tablets, over the next 24 months is going to increase probably tenfold in what we're supporting today versus what we're going to be supporting on the iPads and tablets over the next couple of years.
Okay, great.
A couple of facts on support today that I'm going to throw out there because I think all of us in some way, shape, or form are tied to IT service support of our customers. And it was really kind of a bit discouraging to look at these from someone who's been in the industry, as Rick mentioned, over 15 years, to see some of these numbers come out after all this time. And I want to walk through them because they really impact us in how customers are going to be serviced over the next period of time. Is the first one is the salary comparison. So it looks like over this kind of recessionary period, level 1 support has remained relatively flat, which you would expect. But level 2 continues to increase, and level 3 continues to increase. So what that says to me is as a COO, I'm going to have to pay more for IT for the most part over the next period of time, when in fact there should be a way to find a decrease in these costs, right? And so whether it's through tools or technology, better processes, but it looks like years, it looks like as though we're continuing to add costs in people and labor to the IT equation and how customers are being serviced. it's validated if you look off to the right here where it says cost per incident. And by the way, this is a HDI provides annual best practices and salary survey report to the industry. It's a very good report. It has a lot of great data in there, and that's where this is extracted from. But in 2010, 2009, 2008, if you look at that and you look at the cost per incident through those mediums, what's most interesting to me is they're either the same or they've gone up, which is really really, as I look at it, it's a black mark on the industry, because we are not, as an industry, reducing the costs it takes to service customers. And that has to change, because if it doesn't change internally and through our own efforts, the business will change it for us over a period of time. And I think that we're at that tipping point now within most IT organizations where they have to come up with other solutions. And I've put a couple of questions here, which is more food for thought, but are we really reducing costs of support? Or are we just finding other ways, or just not doing, or just adding to what we have today and saying that we're saving money? And as I look around and talk to companies today, I have not seen a paradigm shift, which is what's required in IT services, to truly change support. We continue to go down the same road with similar technologies, with similar skill sets, and with similar
Tim, I
approaches.
got a question here, actually.
Sure.
A couple things.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me? Yeah, a couple things too, and sorry, just a couple housekeeping things too. I'm not sure if there's something else running. Every once in a while you are cutting out, so I just want to acknowledge that to everybody else and that you're not going crazy. I think there is a little bit of a cutout there. I don't know if Outlook or Skype or anything, but anyway, if anything else is running, you might want to just check on that. And while you're doing that, a question here is, which is great, relevant to this slide, is if you can just put some commentary around what do you think it is that's actually prohibiting the IT support teams from improving on these metrics from a people, process, and technology perspective. What are you seeing there? I mean, you talk about the fact that you feel that it's not going to be able to be trending upwards forever, and we're going to have to find ways to change that. So, what do you think is prohibiting us today from doing that?
And I apologize for the cutting out, Rick. I'll make sure I have everything shut down here so everybody can hear me. Here's the one thing that I spend a lot of time consulting with large organizations in how they should be operating and providing service delivery to their customers. I was at a very, very large, let's say, technology provider in the last 2 weeks, and I sat down with their senior leader. Of his sole job was the customer experience. That was his title. His title was to ensure that the customer experience was a positive customer experience. And this gentleman sat there across the table from me and told me that they had not deployed chat as a medium for their customers to gain support and access to the support organization. So that in and of itself tells me that we have a true disconnect between what customers, those that purchase goods and services, whether they purchase it as an employee and it's a non-dollar transaction, or it's someone who walks into a cell store and buys a mobile device, we truly are not listening to what the customers want and the way they want their experience to happen, particularly from an IT perspective. And I sat there and listened to this gentleman try and defend the fact that he doesn't want to provide chat as an option. Now, this is not a small company. This is a company that has several thousand level 1 resources. And they did not deploy chat because they were concerned about what the customers thought. Yet, if you look at every major website today, particularly on the consumer side of someone purchasing something, there's chat available to them to answer any questions about that purchase. And there's a lot of things available to them, like i.e. proactive chat, which is something that pops up and says, hey, how can I help you buy more of this? If you go to Delta Airlines, or you go to most large airlines today, when you're trying to purchase an airline ticket, something will pop up and say, hey, can I help you through this transaction? We in IT are still focused on being reactionary in what we do. And it will come back to hurt that service delivery organization over time that chooses to continue to go down these roads, because someone's going to catch up on this fact that chat, email, phone, and walk-up support is not changing and continues to go either stay flat or go up. Okay. And the last point I have there, Rick, and
Great, thanks.
I'm not cutting out, but who will drive that change? It's everyone on this call. It's a time to say, what is it that my customer really wants from me? But that takes the ability to sit back and listen to what your customers have to say, to parse out that time, which a lot of us today don't have. In defense of all of us who are in the middle of this day in and day out, there is very little time we have in a day to sit back and listen to our customers and listen to what they say, just because of the fact that we've got so much work on our plates. So it's not intentional. Like they say, people are inherently good. It's typically the environment that changes that. In this case, it's the environment for which we're working in and operating in that's causing us to kind of deflect and not focus in those areas of what, again, the customer really likes or wants. Okay?
Excellent. Thanks.
So rather than throw out a bunch of salary data beyond what I had just provided on level 1, level 2, level 3, I pulled out some quotes from Computer World. They did a survey back mid-year last year as far as what's happening on salaries, and I thought it was very good, the commentary they had, so I thought it would be important to put that commentary up. And it segues into what I was just saying about workloads. IT staffers are being hit with a double whammy, more work and flat pay. I think all of us can admit that we've seen a huge jump in just the number of emails we receive a day. I've been working with managers that sometimes get up to 200 to 250 emails a day in the support environment. And when you just do straight math and say it takes you 60 seconds just to answer an email, which in most cases takes longer than that, if you just to do simple math, you'll realize that all of us are overburdened with work in the IT organization. And that's causing the conflicts outside of that, like we've just been talking about. Here's an interesting stat, and for those of you who, for those of the women on the call, they'll certainly be depressed after this one, but the average bonus for women in IT fell 15.5% in 2009, while the average bonus in IT for men increased 5.6%. So there's something going on there when it relates to females in IT. And so I want to throw this out there because I found it very interesting, and for those on the phone, again, that see this as maybe I need to go back and ask and look at it. And if the overall numbers, by the way, are declining for women in IT, just the nature of the business is causing them to change and look elsewhere. And if you have the opportunity to go out and look at this article in Computer World, again, a pretty compelling argument about why women are leaving the workforce on the IT side. This last item really sums up where we are in IT today, particularly from a service delivery perspective. Between security risk, complex business environments, and more demands for functionality innovation, but without the staff levels on more projects or funding, it's hard to make progress moving forward. This is really encapsulate what's going on in the IT industry today. Because so much is being pushed onto IT, in a good way, by the way, because IT is taking on more responsibility and becoming more centralized in the organization. It's great. The downside is you're having to do that with either fewer or equivalent staff and with no more money than you had before. And it's very hard to make progress in that scenario. And so for all of us out there doing what we're doing every day, this is really what we want to sit down with our supervisors on and explain, here's where we are today. What are we going to do about it to ensure that we can continue to provide great services to our stakeholders? So I'm going to jump and switch gears here a little bit because I think it's important to talk about what's going to happen. And I start with this little blurb here at a very macro level in the workforce. So change really isn't just about technology right now. It's about the people and about what those people have as far as demands. And if you look at what's happening at a younger generation, today's college graduates are going to hold 14 jobs by the time they're 38. They're going to jump around. Their loyalty to companies is not going to exist. We have to get used to that. We have to get used to a workforce who's far more independent, far more mobile, and we've got to work with those resources to accomplish our goals and objectives. Another point there is almost half the workforce in the next few years will be considered contractors. Companies are going to avoid hiring full-time employees just because of the cost basis for them, whether it's health care, whether it's over benefits, etc. They're going to look as contractors being the middle line for half employees, half contractors, and operate their business from there. That's going to create enormous challenges for us in IT because now we're managing two really stakeholder segments, customers and employees and contractors. And we all know today that we have certain policies for those resources. There's certain demands of each that we're going to have to accommodate. And so you now have a whole, well, I would say a new customer segment to address over the next few years that will be fairly significant. Last item there is 71 million baby boomers are going to begin exiting, exiting the workforce in 2011. This is substantial because of those 71 million baby boomers, okay, they take out a significant portion of the workforce as it exists right now. And so as we look at that exit, we really got to look at what are the skills and dynamics that we're losing, what are the skills and dynamics coming in the marketplace, and we've got to figure out what that gap is and fill that gap fairly shortly, because otherwise we're going to be have a difficult challenge as managers and leaders growing our service organization, growing our IT organization, and ensuring that we're delivering high-quality services. I won't spend too much time on this slide. What I did was I did some research on the 2011 trends from 3 different groups. So I arbitrarily just picked Computerworld, Gartner, and Bayforce and picked out what they considered to be the trends. And what I did was I looked across those and looked for the buzzwords that all of them were talking about. And the reason I bring these up is, again, if you internalize what you're seeing today and saying, how is this going to impact me and what can I do about it, there are certain phrases, terms, words, concepts that are really driving the conversation at the executive level in most organizations today, regardless of whether you're a technology organization or not. One is mobility, is the ability for companies to deliver services, sell goods and services, but do it from a mobility-based perspective. Okay? How, as an IT organization, are you going to provide service delivery around that mobility concept? Second concept is cloud computing. Pretty much a buzzword today. You hear it almost every day of the week sometimes if you're in the IT world. But cloud computing will just dominate the marketplace over the next 3 to 5 years, particularly in the small to medium-sized companies that can make that transition faster. But the larger companies are going to make that transition from more of a methodology perspective, and they're going to make that shift over time to where cloud computing will dominate a lot of how IT organizations are run. The other item to talk about there are 2 that I'll put together. Social and video is what we're seeing today is the advent of how social networking and everything else, and everybody talks about social networking and everyone talks about video and things like YouTube and different tools, Twitter, whatever those tools are, we have to realize from an IT perspective there's a service mechanism to that, meaning that at some point someone's going to come to the IT organization, whatever company you're in, if they haven't done it already, and say, we need to work and support these types of areas, whether, again, some type of social media, whether it's video-based activities, could be video-based training, could be video-based supervision within applications, it could be a lot of different areas, but those are the terms and what is coming down the road from a sort of trends perspective. And then the last item there is I highlight storage and data because it continues to be of high concern for a lot of companies, is that storage of information and data, the way it's being passed back and forth, are becoming critical components to how businesses, quote unquote, do business. Software as a service applications, cloud-based applications are helping speeding up the ability to get data, but the ability to consolidate it, to crunch it, and to produce it in a manner in which businesses can perform at a higher level is really going to be the trick over the next 3 to 5 years for a lot of companies. Okay.
And Tim, with the bold and highlighted items there, are you expecting some significant convergence in those areas? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, and I think that's a good question, Rick, is that one of the things you're going to see is things like social media, video, mobility, all of those things you're seeing today, and a lot of the devices that are being rolled out, the iPads, the tablets that are out there in the marketplace. And I think in all of that convergence, it really plays a role in what that means for IT service delivery, really, at the end of the day. And so I'm going to hit on a couple of those items here as we move forward, but it really is that convergence that we as an industry have to look at is, what is that convergence point in my organization, and how am I going to deliver IT services around it? And it's not an easy answer, and it's going to be an answer that's proprietary to the organization, not generic to the industry as a whole, because everybody's going to treat each one of these at a different way. Each organization is going to treat the use of video a different way. Each organization is going to use social media in the way they use it in their organization from a different approach, and based on simple things like governance and security, right? So it's, again, that convergence and how it's going to be proprietary in each environment. From a Gartner prediction perspective, whether you like Gartner or not, or whether you're a fan of them or not, they do have some valid points in what they see, and a lot of what they see does come to fruition. Not all of it, of course, but a lot of what they see. But a couple things I picked out doing some research is these three items here. One is 80% of businesses will support a workforce using tablets by 2013. So essentially this means that 8 out of 10 IT support organizations will have a whole category of support for using tablets, whether it's iPad, HP's product line that they're coming out with, and all the other competitors that are going to catch up to Apple over the next couple of years. So if you're not supporting iPads today, if you're not supporting tablets today, there's a high degree of likelihood you'll be doing that in the next couple of years. Second point there is by 2015, Gartner anticipates cloud computing will hasten the tools of automation, or the tools and automation in IT. What does this mean? Well, they really believe it will eliminate 25% of IT labor hours. That is a huge number. So if you've got an IT organization today, basically what they're saying is cloud computing will drive out 25% of your IT workforce within your company. That's a big number. And if you look at a lot of what's happening out there with mobility, with cloud computing, with data, in the way that all those concepts that were being discussed in the previous slide, it is possible. Will it happen? Well, that remains to be seen. But if you look around you today and say that a quarter of us won't be here in the next 3 to 5 years, that's a pretty significant statement. So as you look towards the technology you're using today and how effective it is, it's something to consider in what the workforce in IT is going to look like in 3 to 5 years. Here's an interesting tidbit that I hadn't followed much until I had seen this, but 10% of online friends will be non-human by 2015, meaning that these social bots will exist, which are software agents that will allow you to provide some type of personalized experience, but they're not human. It's basically these what they call social bots. So just found that kind of interesting food for thought for anyone out there that is trying to move towards an automated way of servicing customers. I think that's about my time, Rick. Just a little bit about Be Virtual and what we do. And again, as Rick mentioned, we are focused on the remote workforce for the IT service and support industry. We do work with a lot of companies who are transitioning from the traditional brick and mortar to having more and more of their team work remotely, whether it's the team themselves, whether it's managers managing those teams, and providing services and solutions around at-home teams when it comes to IT service delivery.
Excellent, and Tim also, so there's a direct contact website there, and also I think on the last slide, Tim, there's also an ability for people if they have any questions related to this topic or further follow-up. There's a phone number and email, and also they can follow the Thought Rock folks on Twitter. So please reach out either to Tim directly or to us if you have any other questions or any specific suggestions. There's also a number of courses and curriculum that are related to some of the remote workforce challenges. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, you can also check out that and ask Tim more about that and contact him directly.